People have stopped taking borrowed time? Are they crazy? Let's discuss. Let's first talk about what borrowed time does. Its most important effect is that it heals you half of your maximum health instantly upon the last cipher being completed. This means that if you're knocked down by the hunter and a teammate finishes the last cipher machine, you will instantly get back up again, but at half health of course. Its only other effect is that it gives you a 50% movement speed increase for 5 seconds after the last cipher has been completed. Quite a powerful one in its own right. One common strategy in Identity V is to prime a cipher machine, a technique that has been around since, well, I don't know, 2017, 2018. What that means is basically getting the last cipher machine to 99% completed and waiting for a teammate who is kiting or being rescued of course to get hit, and then immediately as they're downed, popping or completing that last cipher machine, meaning that they get back up again immediately whilst the hunter is still in attack recovery, zooming off into the distance. While this strategy is quite widely known, it's worth questioning if it's the most effective strategy today. Hunters adapted long ago, often avoiding using basic attacks and opting instead to use damage abilities just to avoid putting themselves into attack recovery that then would prevent BT from being so beneficial. Yet the Identity V wiki states, this trait should be carried by everyone. Once you are out of the lowest rank tiers, it is basically expected by all that you carry borrowed time. Is this still true? I used to think so. That statement generally summarizes the majority of people's opinions from the die-hard take BT fans. Most argue that not taking it is too risky if you're playing with any number of players found randomly through the in-game matchmaking system. Why is this? Well, since this strategy is often the default strategy, this group of players rightly worries that randoms you are playing with won't realize that you don't have borrowed time and will attempt to pop the cipher machine as soon as you are knocked down. Another is that telling other players not to take it could lead to miscommunications during the endgame where someone without BT goes down unnecessarily, forcing the other teammates to sacrifice themselves in an attempt to redeem the match. Yet another argument in favor of taking borrowed time revolves around how hunters would adapt their playstyle upon realizing that some of the players in a match aren't carrying the Persona Web trait. Hunters may notice you have a full kiting build, leading them to slug you, aka just leaving you on the ground to bleed out, whilst in the meantime they go and pressure the last cipher machine or the exit gates with survivors on it of course. Some also rightly point out that taking borrowed time can also prolong the endgame, forcing the hunter to chase after a survivor who is death chair, basically eliminated upon the next time they're put on a rocket chair. As often the last person kiting is really somebody who's already been put on a rocket chair most of the time. The hunter then has to decide whether to start a fresh new chase with an unshared survivor or just to go after the person who they know is going to be eliminated. Because of logical reasons, the latter is what usually occurs, giving more time for teammates to open up the exit gates uninterrupted. And the most common argument in favor of taking borrowed time is to take it if you aren't confident with your kiting abilities. Why? Because regardless of if you take a kiting perk or not, the argument is that you would still get down by the hunter soon after, meaning it is best just to waste more of the hunter's time in the endgame in a similar fashion as the strategy I just talked about. Okay. But most of those arguments have massive flaws, especially with IDV's modern match features. Many of those arguments hinge around outdated assumptions about player behavior and communication, which have been addressed by many recent updates for at least a year or so. The first feature in the game being the icons that you can see above your head at the beginning of a match when you're trying to ready up for a match. These icons show which ultimate Persona Web traits the player is taking for that match. Don't see the symbol of the running man with the plus symbols next to him? Well, they aren't taking borrowed time, so you can adjust your strategy accordingly. But of course, there is a problem. What if your teammates weren't paying attention, or you weren't paying attention? That is when the most useful update comes in. The ability to ping in the match that you don't have borrowed time. You can use this through the quick message system or quick chat system. Ping this message a few times and you should be good to go. Of course, that strategy might not serve you too well in the lowest tiers of Worker Bee and Hound, as survivors are still learning the game mechanics, but for more knowledgeable players, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. The argument of endgame benefiting more from borrowed time also begins to fall apart if you consider that instead you could take knee-jerk, reflex, and flywheel. The introduction of flywheel to the game especially became a big reason for BT's loss of popularity. These perks offer more versatility and can be beneficial throughout the entire match, not just in the endgame like BT. If you use the quick message feature to tell your teammates to focus on decoding as soon as you vault a window in the endgame, you will probably get more or less equal value from that trait in comparison to taking borrowed time, as they complete that final cipher machine and you go zooming off into the distance. It all hinges on using quick messages effectively. The potential benefits you could get throughout the entire match with other traits can definitely outweigh the chance that you would even benefit at all from taking BT. This is even more likely to be the case if your team is also taking a variety of traits that are useful from the start to the mid-game, such as Tide Turner, Knee Jerk, and Flywheel. Your teammates are also now able to come in for body blocks if they have borrowed time, then they are able to reap the benefits from that trait. Not everyone has to take the trait, but one person can, and similarly to how Tide Turner is used, you can plan your playstyle accordingly. Or think about survivors that are playing the harasser role that can come in and then assist teammates that don't have borrowed time. We need to remember that IDV is a team game first and foremost, not a 1v1. There are of course more arguments for and against taking borrowed time, such as the persona web traits that you get on the way to certain traits being better than other ones. Some other arguments center around building your persona web around certain teammate traits and stuff like that is of course quite an advanced tip. And randoms will be randoms at the end of the day, and you cannot predict what they will choose or how they will play in the match. But something that I noticed when reading through everyone's opinions is a list of a few mental fallacies that people were definitely falling into. The first was confirmation bias, something that you are probably doing whilst watching this video. Did you see yourself scoffing at the arguments for or against taking borrowed time, but nodding your head along with things that you agree with? Because as I see it, the arguments for and against taking it are equally as valid, and I didn't believe that before. How about availability heuristics? This is something I saw everywhere in the comments. With this fallacy, people are more likely to assume something or estimate that something is true based on how vivid or how emotionally attached they are to something. Think of when you last played Hunter and you won because the person you downed didn't take borrowed time. It felt out of the ordinary and it felt like you were superior as you wouldn't have made that mistake. Stupid survivor. Right? But how about all of those other matches where the player or players who didn't take borrowed time weren't the ones being chased at the endgame? Or the time you got smoked as they kited you for a 3-cipher kite as they had Flywheel and Knee Jerk, or their teammates came in to harass you, eventually forcing you to change targets completely. You never realized that player didn't have BT, and they won because they didn't have it. What I've learned from reading all of your opinions is that borrowed time is no longer a necessity, but rather a strategic choice that depends on the team's composition and playstyle. As I see it, it's time to reevaluate and catch up with the current meta and use borrowed time strategically in combination with your teammates' traits. It's a tool, not the default. That should be refreshing for you.